Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Fall 2020 New Music Ensemble and New Music Collin College. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tonight's program features student composers from different parts of the campus. We even have a couple of students from studying with Dr. Olga Almakina presenting, as well as some students studying applied composition with me. But all of them are, or most of them, are part of the New Music Ensemble. And so we have a lot of variety on tonight's program. Basically, you're going to see three types of pieces. You're going to see pieces written for traditional acoustic instruments performed on those instruments. You're going to see at least one piece written for a traditional instrument that is performed with what we call score following. And we're going to see another type of piece called interactive electronic music. And there's two flavors of those. There are ones you'll see Aaron Hornberger performing with electronics like guitar pedals and whatnot. And then you'll see a couple of composers, three composers to be exact, that are composing with computer software that they interact with and reacts to them and so forth. And then lastly, we have what are called fixed media pieces, where the composer has written the music and we're performing that music as fixed media. So it's not live, but it's a different modality of working, more traditional in some ways. Since the composer can do things in non-real time that we can't do in real time. So I always like to note that we are in the time of COVID and we're dealing with that. And we have had this attitude from the very beginning to see the silver lining. And what we love about COVID and our virtual online performances are those comments. So we really like and appreciate seeing feedback on our pieces during the performance. So anytime you can give a shout out or congrats to the composer, that's much appreciated, because that's definitely something you can't do during a normal traditional classical music concert. So as we move into the program, our first performer is one of my applied students, but he's also a member of New Music Ensemble. He's a composition major, and he specializes in electronic music. And like other composers, myself included, he works on building instruments. And when we talk about electronic and computer music, we build hybrid instruments. So he has built an instrument in Ableton Live, assembling different samples and algorithms and objects from other languages, even one that does visuals, and he's performing that. This is a fixed media performance, but it's a video of a live performance of this piece. And so the only reason we're not doing that live tonight is because invariably when composers do this, we just do more and more and more and more and more till the computer says no more. And what happens with this and Zoom is that when you can do everything the computer can do, but then Zoom adds too much more onto it. So we decided to do this as a fixed media rendition of this live performance. So without further ado, we'll start with our first piece, Distant Fields by composer Daniel Hoover. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for that excellent piece. And we have already planned for next semester for Daniel to perform that live as soon as he gets his new computer. And um, and it'll be even more bigger and better, I'm sure, pushing the limits of the newest processor from the Apple um, MacBook Pros when they come out. So next up, we have a composer who's also a guitar major who is studying with Professor Dr. Olga Amokina, who is an excellent composer and guitarist herself. And so it's quite natural to see that the next composer, Brent Phillips, has composed a piece for guitar. He is active in the guitar program, and I saw him perform last night several pieces at the close of the guitar solo concert. And so he's written this piece called, you'll see El Regalo Breve, and has been gracious enough to come to our program to perform it tonight. So we'll hand it over to Brent Phillips next. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I think y'all are not getting my audio. Um, Two things then. We like to kid that we are at the bleeding slash cutting edge of the technology. So on this last piece, we might have had a glitch with the video, and we will try to fix that and circle back to Brent's piece on that. But moving forward, we will go on to composer Aaron Hornberger, who is doing another solo guitar piece as well, but this time it's with what we call live electronics. So we make a distinction between live electronics and interactive computer music. The live electronics are all analog, and as you'll see in Aaron's case, a variety of foot pedals that he's programmed to do different effects, as well as using his actual cabinet of his guitar amp. And interactive computer music is like what you saw in the first piece with Daniel. So it's sort of like the concert is a journey through 20th century compositional practices for composers using different types of technology. So without further ado, we'll hand it over to Aaron Hornberger and his piece, A Trip Down Insanity Lane. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Aaron. That was a very good demonstration of real-time electronics. I should also mention that one thing that Aaron was exploring this semester compositionally was the use of microtonal tuning. And so we didn't want to tell you about that before because he wanted you to be unprepared for that. But basically, microtones are is a temperament that is in between half steps, so smaller than half steps, and it will sound um, out of tune in some instances, or it can sound better in tune than what we're used to on an what's called an equal tempered piano. So it's a really interesting things to explore, and a lot of composers have explored that in the 20th century and into the present day. And that's what you see as a hallmark of composers in general and New Music Ensemble in particular is that each student is exploring a different compositional practice most often, even if they're using the same medium like interactive computer music. They will each have different synthesis techniques. For instance, Daniel's had granular synthesis, and Patrick's was using a different technique altogether. So so that's what we love about composition and new music in particular is that there's so much to explore. And no matter what your interests are, there's a tie-in with music and with composition. And that being said, one of our newer members this semester is Eliana Almanza, and she's also a guitarist. And even though she's not currently studying with a composition professor, she has written a lovely piece. And this, we are always happy to have these pieces performed in this format where you will see the score scrolling. And so even though it's not performed by a live instrumentalist, I feel like just that silver lining, like the comments on YouTube, it's a wonderful way to get to experience the music that's very unique and is very much a thing that we didn't have as an option um, a couple decades ago even. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to our engineer who will cue up the video of Eliana Almanza's composition, The Iridescence of Life. Thank you, Eliana, for that lovely piece. And we're looking forward to working with you more in the future and to more pieces. And our goal always is to perform them live, but I will definitely miss hearing the score or seeing the score performed because as a composer, that means a lot to me. So you can't have everything, but maybe one day we'll have the score and the live performance and the composer all in the same place and being able to experience it that way. So next up, we have a composer, Johnny Pickle. Johnny fits a profile of a standard new music ensemble member in that he started with synthesis class a year ago, and there's always 2 or 3 students in synthesis class that I teach that are wanting to explore more advanced synthesis techniques. But there is no Synthesis 2 class, so the best option for those students is to sign up for New Music Ensemble, where they can choose different techniques. I've already mentioned one like granular synthesis, or there's physical modeling, or wave shaping, or wave train synthesis, all these different synthesis techniques out there. And so New Music Ensemble gives those composers an opportunity to do advanced study, if you will. And so Johnny stuck out immediately in the synthesis class as an extremely creative individual. But his primary medium is working in a DAW, a digital audio workstation, because it's analogous to a musical score like Eliana's piece, but he's working with the actual sounds and samples themselves. So in traditional composition, we'd call that musique concrète, because he's working physically with the actual sounds, as opposed to abstractly like Eliana with the notes and the score. So again, I've always found Johnny's music very interesting because he's a maximalist in a way, and that's another style in the 20th century. And so without further ado, I'll hand it over to Johnny. He's going to share his screen and perform his composition. It's fixed media, but it's with a video that he's put to go with this piece. So thank you and enjoy.
They come up with you ever see the guy in the note? No, it's South Carolina, it's not Ohio. Okay. South Carolina, it's not Ohio.
Sleepy Joe. I don't think so.
What? It's called China. What? China. It's what? China. It's called China.
I think Sleepy Joe could have made this deal. I don't think so.
Exception of Abraham Lincoln.
Nigeria, Senegal, Uganda, Cold It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. It should have never happened.
If I did that once, it would be the end of the road. Right? Now, Sleepy Joe would say Trump has lost it. I was watching him when he said,
Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, who's been in government 47 years and never did a thing. Yeah, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because you guys did nothing.
I don't
that's
think
the
so.
end of his show.
You think Sleepy Joe could have made this deal, baby? Sleepy Joe. I think. Do you think he would have made this deal somehow? I don't think so.
Mr. President, one thing I can tell you is we appreciate the help for peace from anyone in America, and we appreciate what you've done enormously.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. And I should mention again, Johnny's comfort zone has been working with his working in the DAW, but you can see that he's a multi-instrumentalist as well, playing drums and guitar and keyboards. And so there's all those skill sets coming together in his DAW compositions, as well as working with the samples. But his area of exploration this semester, like Aaron exploring microtonality, Johnny had never done a video before, so this is his first video, and we're really proud and impressed with what he's able to do there. So again, you can see the number one idea with New Music Ensemble is whatever you come to the table with in New Music Ensemble, push yourself to grow and move beyond that. So with that in mind, we'll move to our next composer, Patrick Lussier. Same profile, started in synthesis class, but Patrick, is a composition major, and so he has also done some one-on-one composition study with me as well, but his strength, his forte has been electronic music, and he's programmed several compositions over the last year. This year, he and I collaborated with this program you're going to see, which is, it's almost hard to describe. It's an alternative control type of environment. So there's many ways to interface with musical sound, and each musical instrument has its own interface: the piano keyboard, the guitar fretboard, the bow of the violin. And so the unique thing that composers that do computer music is we can create our own interface. So you'll see a very novel, unique interface that Patrick is working with, to which he has brought his own sound world into and created the composition. So he will share his screen, and I'll hand it over to Patrick next.
By Sharon. The south wind blew as hard as he could, but the more Sigh. Sharon lost, the north wind gave up the attempt.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. So, next up, we have a live performance piece. Oh, and I should mention with Patrick's piece, the Threnody for the Victims of 2020, which is kind of a trending topic right now, is sort of an homage to Penderecki's piece, Threnody to the Victims of Hiroshima, which just kind of brings into context what we're dealing with this year, with so many things that have happened, but not least to mention the COVID-19 circumstances that we all are having to deal with. So in case you missed that reference, that's a good one to Google and check. So next we have a live performance again by another composition student of mine, Anna Xiong, and she is originally a songwriter, but she has embraced a traditional composition wholeheartedly this last 6 months or so. She's written several compositions, and the first ones were for woodwinds and I believe flute, violin, and piano. But I encouraged her to write a solo piece for violin this semester, partly because we are very fortunate at Collin College to have an outstanding young violinist named Michelle Marty. And so the way composers work, sometimes people think that a composer just writes a piece and then someone comes along and plays that piece. But the best practices for composers is they find the best musicians and hopefully musicians they get along with, and they write the music specifically for that performer. And so that's the same thing we try to do at Collin. When we have an outstanding musician, we write as much as we can for that musician while they're here. And so without further ado, I'll hand it over to Michelle Marty, who will perform Anna Xiong's piece, Approaching the Lake in Summer. Okay, thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Anna. That was beautiful performance, and we're so lucky for Michelle to graciously perform that for us. Composers of music are pretty much broke, so whenever we get an outstanding performer to compose or sorry to perform our music, the best we can do is buy them a cup of coffee. So, but we're definitely going to do something nice for Michelle. But this performance tonight is coming on the heels of her performing the first movement of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto yesterday. So she's very active as a performer, and we're looking forward to working with her in the future. And we're also looking forward to more compositions by Anna. So moving to the next composition, we are going to feature composer um, Ladarius Bailey Hunt, and he is a percussionist, and so it's no surprise that he's written a piece for marimba. He studied composition with Dr. Olga Amlakina Vera, who I've mentioned earlier, as the other composition professor here at Collin College. And though he's not in the music ensemble and he's not currently studying composition, he's still part of our composition community at Collin that I like to speak of. So, for instance, even though we didn't have new music ensemble in the summer, we still continued to meet throughout the summer on Discord and Zoom, and continued working on music and troubleshooting, trying to learn all the new technologies. And Ladarius was there with us the entire summer, performing on one concert that we did, and also hanging out with us this semester to perform as well. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Ladarius, who will perform his composition Dancing While Falling and Get Walking by Ladarius Bailey Smith. Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you, Ladarius, for that excellent composition and performance. Um, I should mention Ladarius is, as a percussionist, he plays all the orchestral percussion instruments, snare, xylophone, marimba. But you can see, due to COVID, we're all at home, more or less, and he's fortunate enough to have a practice marimba at home. So that's quite a commitment to your profession, because most percussionists, they play the university instruments. So it says a lot about Ladarius to go the extra mile for that. So next up, we have another student who was a synthesis student and then chose to do new music ensemble. He was a very accomplished songwriter, multi-instrumentalist as well, and he is currently working on a multi-EP project that he's been sharing with us. It's going to be released in the spring, but these are almost like concept EPs. The pieces are related, so it's a huge undertaking, multiple EPs in the works. But starting last spring, he took an interest in looper machines, as they're called, where you record ideas and it plays them back and you can control them. And so that's been Eric Lyon's area of interest and exploration, in addition to his work on his EPs. So he's going to be performing next. I don't think it's a share screen, but I'll hand it over to Eric Lyons next for the next piece. Okay, thank you, Eric. So we're looking forward to Eric's EPs next semester, as well as some more looping pieces. I should mention he's looping with a combination of instruments in a DAW, as well as you saw guitar and so forth. Next up, we have another student, Professor Olga Amalkinas, again a guitarist, and he also performed last night for the guitar soloist concert, and he was gracious enough to share his music with us, and we're really looking forward to that tonight. And so, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Carlos Ramirez, who will be performing "The Old Jackdaw," his original composition for guitar. Back to me. Okay, thank you, Carlos. And we're looking forward to hearing more compositions next semester. So again, even though Carlos is not a member of the New Music Ensemble, he's a member of the Collin College community of composers, and we always welcome their contributions for our concerts. So if you know anyone that's a composer and needs an outlet for their performances, it's extremely important for the development of a composer that they perform their works or they have their works performed. Like I tell my students, you'll learn more from us from 5 minutes of someone playing your music than you will weeks and weeks of lessons. So it's extremely important to get out there, have your work performed by other musicians, or perform it yourself at the least. So we really appreciate Carlos sharing his music with us tonight. And now to conclude our program, our last piece is featuring another one of those students who took synthesis and then went on to New Music Ensemble. Daniel, like Patrick and Eric, also they took a course called Audio Electronics, and Daniel stuck out to me early on because he built a very elaborate controller for his audio electronics final project. And what I love about that is that he is practical, he went on to compose a piece to use that controller. And he's now using a variation on that controller, which this is not one he built, but it's very similar in function. And so this piece has a very interesting history. The sounds you will hear were recordings of musical instruments and noisemakers that we were, as an ensemble, using to score a theater production last spring. And we had multiple rehearsals, worked out the music for these 13 vignettes, and then we were also planning to present that as part of a Books in Common endeavor. So Daniel was very gracious. He recorded samples of all the instruments, and really nice recordings. Unbeknownst to him and us at the time, we were going to be completely shut down by COVID come March. And so we were not able to do the Books in Common performance. We were not able to do the theater production performance, but we had at our disposal this really nice collection of samples that Daniel had recorded. I believe he had Eric's assistance with that recording. And so fast forward, 6 months, Daniel is using a new controller. He's using some different synthesis sound processing techniques, but what you're going to hear are him triggering those samples from a thwarted theater production that the New Music Ensemble was scoring. So the samples will probably be used for that in the future, or we'll perform it live again. But we're very happy that we can say something has come of all that effort, and it's in the guise of this wonderful composition that Daniel Hawes has composed and is performing for you now. So what you're going to see is Daniel triggering those samples from a very unique type of control interface. And so I'll hand it over to Daniel Hawes now. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Daniel. I'm looking forward to hearing some more pieces with that. Um, that controller, which I should mention, the reason Daniel's moving it is it has accelerometers in it, so it's controlling the sound with the tilt as well. So we're seeing yet another type of way to interact and make music as opposed to traditional acoustic instruments. And so, as a conclusion to the program, I have a few thank yous, very important, and I want to recognize all the composers. But without further ado, I want to recognize Professor Dr. Usarik, Dr. Alicia Usarik, and she's on the video there. I don't know if we can see her now, but she graciously gave of her time to edit Anna's score with bowings and work with Michelle on the performance of that piece. And Dr. Usarik has been supporting New Music Ensemble since the day she got here at Collins. So I owe her over and over and over again for coming in and herself performing works by the student composers and also guiding and coaching her own students, the advanced ones who are able to perform music by composers, because that really is the ideal situation that we want. And also her work with the string ensemble. And Dr. Usarik is in the McKinney campus, and her charge at that campus is to grow the music program. So any of you that are in the McKinney area, she's your contact person, whereas the Spring Creek campus, formerly known as the Spring Creek, the Plano campus, has been sort of the music hub for the performing arts and music. That's going to change, and so Dr. Amalkina Vera, I mentioned, is at Wiley growing the program there, and Dr. Usarik is in McKinney growing the program there. So if you're wanting to join a performance ensemble or be active in music, you don't have to come to Plano campus anymore. You can do it there. And in addition, I believe she's finishing a book and also is our main music history professor on that campus. So we're very lucky as a college and a music department and fine arts division to have Dr. Usarik. And so next, the two most important people making this evening possible as a whole are our producer, Reed Wilson, who's you can see there is also a member of New Music Ensemble. And as you probably surmised, there are a lot of moving parts to run a production like this with every performer located in a different area with different operating systems, different hardware, different software, different media. It's mind-boggling, and Reed has exceptional organizational skills and a very calm demeanor. I've never seen him upset. So we can't thank him enough for being our producer this evening, and he is outstanding. So we'd all be very lucky to have a Reed in our life to help us get our act together. And also equally important is Winley, who is our engineer. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, this is a live stream that involves actually 4 significant pieces of software. And of course, it ends with YouTube live stream. Before that is OBS, some streaming software. Before that is Zoom, as many of you are familiar with. And along with Zoom, in tandem with Zoom, is Discord. So there is a lot going on. And when customizes each scene based on, is it fixed media, is it live performance, is it a live acoustic performance, and so forth. So it's equally mind-boggling how a single brain can be so powerful that it can keep track of all that stuff. But when like Reed are those individuals that can handle all this. But of course, without the composers, we got to have the composers. So I want to give special thanks and recognition because composition is just hard. It's difficult. I always like to point out that anybody can come up with a musical idea. That's human nature. That's natural. We do that. We're creative and we're creative musically. But it takes special training and hard work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to turn an idea into a composition. There's a lot of anguish involved and in all the countless decisions you have to make. And so it is no small feat to have an idea and take that idea fully through the arc to completion, not only completing the piece of music, but performing that, having that performed. And so many different skill sets are involved. And the the history is littered with tens of thousands of millions, if not millions, of pieces that are not finished. And so these pieces tonight are very special. They enter that small percentage of compositions that are actually finished and actually performed. It's incredible accomplishment. So I want to recognize now on my screen, I see Brent Phillips at the top, Ladarius Bailey Hunt, Daniel Hawes, Anna Young, Carlos Ramirez, and of course our performer Michelle Marty and our professor Alicia Wisarek, and Aaron Hornberger, Eric Lyons, and I should mention Reed Wilson is also a composer. He's just not presenting a work on tonight's program. Johnny Pickle, whose video is not showing right now. Daniel Hoover, Eliana Almanza. Oh, and there's another Johnny Pickle, and then there's another. So I think that's everyone. So we really appreciate you coming out or being there tonight, supporting us as composers. And we are looking forward to presenting another concert. We will not wait until May to do another concert. We almost assuredly will have a concert in February or beginning of March. Because who knows what's going to happen between now and then. So we need to get that concert done as soon as possible. So we want to thank everyone again, and please leave a comment. We really appreciate those comments. And always my parting words are, if you know anybody who's interested in experimental music, especially, or composition, send them our way, because we're always looking to expand our community of composers and provide opportunities for performance and opportunities to compose and keep this process going. Okay, so thank you all so much, and have a safe evening and good night.